We would call to order this regular city council meeting Tuesday, July 11th. We'll take a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Biddlecombe.
Here.
Dyke.
Here.
Artino.
Here.
Tapp.
Here.
Klaus.
Here.
Greaves. Hagee.
Very good. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for May 9th.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dyke.
I move that the minutes of May 9th, 2023, regular council meeting be approved as written.
Questions on that? Roll call, please.
Dyke.
Yes.
Biddlecombe.
Yes.
Tapp.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Klaus.
Abstain.
Very good. Next on the agenda is audience comments. Citizens may address their concerns to the city council. Please state your name and address for the recorded journal, and please keep it to a 3-minute time limit. So if anybody would like to speak. Mr. Murray.
Mayor, we obviously have an agenda. We have some members. Were they speaking portion?
Why don't they come up now?
Okay.
State your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Mark Fenwick. I'm a resident of the Two Rivers Homeowners Association. Address is 1101 Sheltered Brook Drive. I'm just here to let you know what we feel. I'm Vice President of the Homeowners Association, and collectively, I believe we're almost all in unanimous decision that this development should go forward. We say this with heavy hearts. Obviously, we're going to miss the open lots, the serenity, the quietness associated with the development. But overall, I think it's good for not only the association, but the existing homeowners and, of course, the city of Huron. So with that said, I believe and encourage you to vote yes on the decision to let the Two Rivers expand.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
I'm Charlene Connell.
Bruce Malik.
We live at 1119 Sheltered Brook. We built a house there between 2016 and 17. We lived there part-time for a while, and we've been living there full-time for the last few years. We love it there. I mean, the views are wonderful. It's very calming. It's like being in a nature preserve. And we know things will be a little disruptive during the build, but we're kind of welcoming the fact that we'll have more good neighbors. And we love the community itself. Everything's close by, and everybody seems friendly here because they're happy to be in Huron.
Yeah, we couldn't be more pleased with the development.
Very good.
Very quiet, peaceful, relaxing. It's like living in a resort town, 24/7. We're pretty darn happy about it.
Yeah. Okay.
We moved from Avon Lake, and this is a whole different kind of atmosphere. And we like the opportunity, like I said, to have other neighbors to share it with. And we really hope this will go through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Victoria Oldham. I live at 1013 Beachside Lane, and I'm here to respectfully request that you reconsider your plan of implementing the trash bills through the county auditor on our property taxes. I really feel that that would be an extreme burden to those that are on fixed incomes or have other hardships. Secondly, I don't know if you've considered the fact that some homeowners have loans on their property, on their mortgages on their property, and those taxes may be escrowed, and I think that would create an incredible issue to worry about those trash bills paid through the escrowed taxes and that sort of thing. Lastly, along these same lines, I understand that there is an incredible savings that the city could enjoy from this change. However, I would also like you to consider revising your one hauler policy and open it up so that we, the residents, would be able to contract with a private hauler. Most of those folks in business nowadays have brand new equipment and, young employees and that sort of thing. So that could be a benefit as well, and that would help us all out that way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And somebody will get back with you on some of the items. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for everybody that came up and spoke. Next, we have I think a semi-short presentation on Route 6 Phase 2, and that will be presented by Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Critelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's been a while since we gave you an update on Route 6 Phase 2, so we thought it was time again. So originally this project was conceived in 2018. We got stage 2 plans approved in 2020, and the basic plans were. You need this turned around a bit. The basic plans were removing the unwarranted signal, which ODOT said is no longer warranted at Centre Street, closing off Jim Campbell, resurfacing Route 6, and then upgrading curb ramps, ADA standards, and possible lane reassignments. We've gone through project scope meetings after that. We've carried out traffic studies, safety studies to try and find the best option. The base option was basically resurfacing it, just putting blacktop down, leaving it as is. Alternate one was closing down Jim Campbell at Centre Street. This one was with a right in, right out. This was an option that ODOT could live with. Staff could not. We didn't think this was a good option. Right here, this was a left in, there's a right in only and a right out only, creating that new junction at Liberty, or not at Liberty, but up by the high school. This one was a new full access, still closing down Jim Campbell at Centre. This was creating a full access break in the median and a full access break heading on to Jim Campbell. Staff could live with this option because it was a full break in the middle, traffic would flow. ODOT could not live with this option. They didn't like the full break in the middle, so they took this one off the table for us. So staff talked to ODOT about the possibility of putting a roundabout in at Liberty, still closing down Jim Campbell. What this did was it slowed traffic coming in from the west. It slowed the traffic coming down in through Centre Street, and it kind of gave us more of a boulevard feel as you came into town. Kind of gave us a gateway as you entered in. We're closing down Jim Campbell. A lot of that traffic would funnel through the roundabout, which would keep the traffic flowing. And we think it would take all of that traffic off the Centre Street exit off of Jim Campbell. So this is conceptually kind of what we believe it would look like. It would be a one-lane roundabout. We'd reconfigure the lanes from 2 to 1 and bring them down into Centre Street. And then this is the idea of actually having some kind of gateway as we come into town. Don't know what it will look like yet, but it would be appealing as you come in off the curves and come past the park. So where are we now? We've had many in-person and virtual meetings with ODOT trying to reconcile what we're going to do on this project. They obviously have different ideas than we do. ODOT will not approve any of staff recommended options. They've been very clear on this. Staff don't believe that any of the ODOT options are in the best interest of the city. So kind of at an impasse at this point. The thing that is causing the impasse is it's called a limited access right of way, or an LA. And basically what it is, and Russ will go through the engineering talk on this, basically ODOT says that this is a limited access, it's for road only, and you can't do anything else with it. So if we want to create new breaks in that, or new junctions, they will not let us do it without a traffic study, and then even if we prove that the new intersection is worthy, they still will not let us do it. And that's the issue we're having with a lot of the breaks. So we started a conversation with ODOT, and we said, well, what if you guys gave up that LA break, gave it over to the city between Centre Street and the pedestrian bridge? That would put the city in control of that. That would allow us to put the roundabout in. That would allow us to put a new break in there. It would allow us to reconfigure the road as the local entity saw fit, and not as ODOT saw fit. That break would be transferred to the city for local control. They've agreed that this is a possibility, that they're willing to talk to us about this. And if we could pull this off, it would give us a lot more flexibility. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Russ, because this is all his gobbledygook.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
There's already break at Fabens, so are they saying you can't have any, or are they saying you can only have one? I mean,
You can only have the ones ODOT says you can have.
okay, all right.
Somehow they let us have that.
Yeah, at some point in that Michigan left, and the break for Fabens was, I don't know if it was grandfathered in or allowed at some point in time.
Thanks, Stu, Mayor, Council. Good evening. I'll try to help with the conversation here, but as Stu was alluding to, we've been in the conversations, I personally with the department, ODOT, on the limited access abandonment and what that would mean. And just to be clear, this is right from the Ohio Revised Code, basically, but the short is, and it's maybe hard to read, but limited access highway or freeway, specific designed for through traffic. And the key term or words in here are no easements or right of access by reason of the fact that their property abuts upon such highway. Access may be allowed only at highway intersections designated by the department, basically. So they have control on this is across the state, of course, and how the condition works. And as we went through this process, it was, okay, what are the limits? And those orange highlights are defining where these potential abandonment of the limited access right-of-way would be. And so what does this change mean to the city? I'll say the long and short of it is, the only significant change is the ability for whatever entity or agency or community that is abutting that highway that does not have access to it now, to now be able to put utilities, landscape treatments, basically occupy that right away within the safety context of what ODOT deems safe. Still would have to go through their acceptance and approval relative to offsets and clear zones from a safety standpoint. But at this point in time, those opportunities are not there. For example, you have a chain link fence up and down that right away. That option would be up to the city, whether you wanted to keep that fence, whether you wanted to do something different, whether you wanted to create opportunities for utilities, walks, etc. So it really opens up the right-of-way access. This is a hard slide to read, but this roadway maintenance responsibilities, which is right off of ODOT's website, basically the continuation of maintaining the roadway as we're doing now for State Route 13, US 6, Project 1, all these requirements are the continued ownership of the state, but the maintenance responsibility within municipality with access to all the same federal dollars in state funding that is available to us now. So this is still an NHS, National Highway System, state highway, and it will continue to be eligible for all those funding sources. So there's really, call it downside, but there really is none other than now you've opened up the right-of-way. I'm kind of trying to keep that simple, and we can answer questions as we go. But so that's another change. The change of condition from ODOT controlled limited access. Utilize the abandonment area for proposed improvements. It still continues to remain as a federally eligible highway, and I think one of the restrictions which would be forthcoming in the language and whatever guidance comes along, that this right-of-way still within those limits has to remain a publicly accessible transportation corridor in perpetuity. So the city would not be able to, okay, we're going to abandon it and turn it into just a park or a site development. So that's the long and short. I'll hand it back to Stu to close that out.
There was one more, actually. Yeah, the project time frame. This kind of gives you an idea of what the time frame would look like. It'd basically be 8 months to a year to complete the whole process from when we give them the go-ahead. And as you can see, there's public meetings, there's public processes, everything built into here as in your normal ODOT processes. So the next steps, staff would like to request a motion to permit the city manager to continue negotiating with an ODOT relating to their abandonment process and explore the steps and obligations required for the city to eventually take title to the limited access right of way and a future ordinance. Mr. Mayor?
Any questions? Mr. Hagee.
It's got two. I just want to make sure I heard what you said. This does not change the funding that we've already secured. Nothing changes.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And then would the state require money to buy the property, or is it okay?
Mr. Graves.
So I think last time when we talked, it's because that stoplight has to be removed, right? What is the time frame of that having? We have to have a decision by a certain time on how we do this?
No, we don't. We have funding to remove the light. We have another funding source to work on actually Route 6 itself. Our funding is scheduled for 24, 25, if I remember it. 25, 26. So we'll have enough time to, as we work through this, we can work through the design process for the roundabout, if that's what we end up looking at, and we can work in tandem along here.
Mr. Art.
So basically, they're not giving up anything, they're just allowing us to do it.
For all intents and purposes, yes.
So what gets me is, according to the state, our traffic volume is so low that we don't need a traffic light. But yet, 100 yards down the road, we can't have a break.
I would love to argue that point.
Mr. Dyke.
I just want to make sure to keep in mind, I think two things should happen if this does happen. Jim Campbell needs to be widened. So if there's something that we're going to do extensive and why we have people out there, we need to look at that, because when school's in session or there's like the football season or they're having a game, you can't get two-way traffic down through there. I think that causes safety issues. I'm surprised somebody hasn't gotten hurt with that.
Parking.
With
because
parking.
the cars are parked all
Yes.
on the road.
And then if we do go down this path, have we gotten any public feedback from those individuals that live close to that area, just to see what they have said? Have we done anything in that regard yet?
Not yet. We're not at a point where we're fully committed to an option, and that's why this process and talking to ODOT we needed to get through this process so we knew what our options were before we start engaging the public, to be honest. Or we would have been talking hearsay.
Because ever since I've started, you mentioned roundabout, people get very upheaved about that.
Yep.
And then secondly, I can remember there was talks about Center Street, trying to make that one way and, all this different stuff. So I just want to make sure, everything is well thought out, clear. It's going to be better for the community. We're just not doing it to do it.
Yep.
Thanks for all your efforts on this.
I was just going to say a couple comments, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. So in no particular order, the good news is, by potentially closing Jim Campbell at Center Street, it is going to significantly reduce the traffic eastward between the roundabout and Center Street. In that instance, you're really only going to have traffic that needs to get to Ohio or Stowe Street or may live in that vicinity. Two, though, and I'd have to look at the engineering, but I think I'm right, the more you look at widening Jim Campbell, which you'd have to go southward, you're then crunching into what is existing ODOT right-of-way, of which, if we kept it as is, we wouldn't be able to encroach onto that ODOT right-of-way. So, as mentioned, it just doesn't allow us to explore things like widening Jim Campbell, if that's in the plan. When we talk about the aesthetic enhancements of removing the chain link fence, and maybe that becomes a landscaping buffer. Talk about extending the black decorative lighting all the way to the roundabout. It opens up a lot of options. And what I like about this too is, by closing the intersection at Center Street, you're really pushing that traffic southward to the roundabout versus northward into the quieter residential neighborhoods, which I think is critically important. And at the end of the day, whether it's through the abandonment process or the actual design process, there's a really robust ODOT required public process that we have to go through, in essence, twice, one on the abandonment and one on the design itself. So there'll be a lot of opportunity for folks to weigh in.
Thank you.
Mr. Schrader.
Might be the first time.
You're upset. Any other questions or comments, Mr. Hamilton or Mr. Critelli?
I just have a comment. We in the Main Street Plan committee that I was on, we had a lot of discussion about this, and I just think it's the right way to go. I would definitely support that motion to go forward. So I just think for everything that we'd like to do, I think it's the perfect solution.
I mean, my only comment is I always look at the safety factor, so I know you guys look at that. Sometimes I think you look at it more than ODOT does, but I guess I did say that. And like I said, I can defer to the chief back there, and we know where the car wrecks are at and what happens and where the traffic gets tied up at. And so, yeah, anything to make it a little smoother. I get it. I know the roundabouts are a change, and that's going to be difficult for a lot of people. But yeah, I got full of confidence in the staff to work this out and come back with something that we can look at. Anything else? All right. Well, with that said, you have one?
No.
Oh.
Oh, you.
Go ahead.
I didn't know you had to put it out for you.
No, yeah, you put it in big letters, of course. Right?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Klaus.
make a motion to permit the city manager to continue negotiating with ODOT relating to their abandonment process, to explore the steps and obligations required for the city to eventually take title to limited access right-of-way by ordinance.
Very good. Any questions on the motion? Roll call, please.
Klaus,
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Tap,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Thank you, Mr. Critelli. Next on the agenda is old business, ordinance number 2023-16.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dyke.
I move that ordinance number 2023-16 be placed on its second reading.
Questions on the second reading? Roll call.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we should read the title into the record.
Okay, Mr. Schrader.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council, staff, in attendance, and guests, and those watching at home. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2023-16, an ordinance to submit to the electors of the city a proposed amendment of the charter of the City of Huron, Ohio, to adopt Section 12.10 Periodic Charter Review.
Mr. Lasko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As mentioned, this is a second reading following up on two work sessions, one from last fall and one most recently later in the spring this year. Traditionally, it's fairly good governance for municipalities, charter municipalities, to do charter reviews over some number of years, whether that's 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, depending on the need of each community. The city of Huron has never done one since the creation of our charter. And what we are proposing is to undertake the first ever comprehensive charter review for the city of Huron. Unfortunately, though, our existing charter does not even speak to how often a charter review should be done or what a membership of a body should be. I do want to mention, obviously, city council at any given time can always put something on the ballot to amend the charter with 5/7 vote. But again, what we're looking to do here is establishing a sort of comprehensive process that comes up every number of years for the community to look at charter review. Some of the elements that I just want to mention that are in the proposed draft are that the first charter review would occur, assuming approved by the electorate this November, would occur in 2024, and every 5 years thereafter. The Charter Review Committee would be 7 qualified electors that are appointed by each council member. So each council member would have one appointment to that commission. Requirements to serve on the commission would be that you must reside in Huron, and you must be registered to vote within the city as well. Also, an important point, the Charter Review Commission would merely be making recommendations to the full body of council. Ultimately, 5/7 members of council would need to agree and approve of each recommendation provided to them. If a council is given 5 recommendations, they can go through and individually approve some and not others. So I just want to make sure that's known. Also, just a few other points that I wanted to mention in the current draft is that members, once appointed, cannot serve on any other boards or commissions within the city and cannot serve on executive charter review commission. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or Mr. Schrader, but I know it's just a second read at the moment.
Yes, just a point of order, Mr. Mayor. We have a motion to place ordinance number 2023-16 on its second reading pending.
Pending, okay. We don't need to take a roll call.
We should do a roll call just to place on the second reading.
Okay, is there any questions or comments for Mr. Lasko or Mr. Schrader? I think I would just put out there, and I know you said that each council member, we had discussed this in work sessions, that we could pick or submit a person that we think would be good for the charter review. I'd just like to put out there, if there's anybody in the audience or watching tonight that might be interested in that, contact, get a hold of one of us. You know, we take everybody in consideration. So that's what I would put out. If there's nothing else, roll call.
And Mr. Mayor, just one last point of order. This is not to approve or disapprove of ordinance number 2023-16. This roll call is merely to place ordinance number 2023-16 on its second reading. Mr. Dyke?
Yes.
Martino?
Yes.
Middlecombe?
Yes.
Papp?
Yes.
Klaus?
Yes.
Hagee?
Yes.
Reeves?
Yes.
Okay, we get that. Next on the agenda is new business. We have ordinance number 2023-17.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Klaus.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to waive the 3 reading rule and place ordinance number 2023-17 on its first and final reading, please.
Questions on the 3 reading rule? Roll call.
Klaus?
Yes.
Greaves?
Yes.
Hagee?
Yes.
Artino?
Yes.
Tapp?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Middlecombe?
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
This is ordinance number 2023-17, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2022-69, adopted on December 27, 2022, to provide for supplemental appropriations from the general fund and other funding sources.
Mr. Swaysgood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. Ordinance 2023-17 is an appropriation measure to increase the police department's budget to pay for unanticipated maintenance within the station of approximately or totaling $15,000. Although this is an increase to the general fund budget, income tax through the first 6 months of 2023 exceeds that amount, so this can be fully supported through revenue sources.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Swaysgood? Questions for Chief Graham? Okay. Final adoption.
Klaus,
Yes.
Hap,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Very good. Next is ordinance number 2023-18. I'd like to make a motion, waive the three reading rule and place ordinance number 2023-18 on its first reading. Questions on the three reading? Roll call, please.
Hap,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-18, an ordinance amending the citywide cash handling policy for the city of Huron and declaring an emergency.
I would like to make a motion to declare ordinance number 2023-18 an emergency. Questions on that? Roll call.
Tap,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Mr. Swaysgood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city's cash handling policy was established in 2021. The cash policy not only sets standards and operating procedures for the city's cash handling process, but it also sets a petty cash and cash drawer amounts. This ordinance in front of you today is just amending some of those cash and petty cash, the cash drawer and petty cash amounts that haven't been amended since 2021. This should be done periodically and will be done annually moving forward. So I am just respectfully asking to approve the establishment of a cash drawer in the Building and Zoning Department and petty cash in the Police Department.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Swaysgood? Final adoption.
Tap,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-20.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Artino.
I move to dispense with the three reading rule and place ordinance number 2023-20 on its first reading.
Questions on the three reading rule? Roll call, please.
Artino.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Klaus.
Yes.
Tap.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-20. An ordinance authorizing the donation of a police vehicle that is unneeded, obsolete, and/or unfit for municipal purposes to E. Hovey Career Center, and authorizing the city manager to enter into any one or more agreements with E. Hovey Career Center to memorialize inter alia the donation of the police vehicle in its current as-is, where-is, with all faults condition, and to ensure E. Hovey Career Center removes all decals and police markings from the vehicle and declaring an emergency.
Artino.
Mr. Mayor,
Artino.
I move to place ordinance number 2023-20 as an emergency measure.
Questions on the emergency? Roll call, please.
Artino.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Klaus.
Yes.
Tap.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Chief Graham.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. This is a older cruiser that is not patrol worthy anymore. When we got our two new cruisers, this is one that we were phasing out. The vehicle is older. It has around 150,000 miles, and it has a value of around $4,000, and it's going to take has about $3,000 of repair, which I don't think is a economic, fiscally responsible thing to do on a vehicle in that condition. By donating this to Ehovie, this allows the students that are in the auto mechanic trade to go all through the vehicle and make the necessary repairs, and that will eventually be donated to the public safety program at Ehovie, which are students that are going to be studying law enforcement, and allows them to train and work in a real police car.
Very good. Any questions for Chief Graham? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Final adoption.
Artino,
Yes.
Tap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Klaus.
Yes.
Very good. Next, we have ordinance 2023-21.
Mayor.
Mr. Klaus.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to waive the three reading rule and place ordinance number 2023-21 on its first and final reading, please.
Questions on the three reading? Roll call, please.
Klaus,
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Tap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-21, an ordinance ratifying prior approval of the Two Rivers Condominium Phase 1 and related plat approval, approving Planning Commission's recommendations for the Two Rivers Condominium Phase 1 project, and authorizing the city manager to execute a development agreement with Two Rivers LLC et al. Pertaining to same and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Klaus.
I'd like to place ordinance number 2023-21 as an emergency measure, please.
Questions on emergency? Roll call, please.
Klaus,
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Tap,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
I do not see Mr. Engel, so Mr. Lasco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Engel is on vacation. So as Mr. Schrader mentioned, this is consideration of several items, which is approval of the final plat for Phase 1, approving Planning Commission recommendations related to the said plat, and then finally, which is the approval of a development agreement specific to Phase 1. I know we had a public hearing at last meeting related to sort of the plat itself, so I'm going to focus the majority of my comments on the development agreement. As mentioned a few meetings ago, with every subdivision that's going to come before this council, we felt it prudent to start having development agreements in place that speak to the public infrastructure, improvements, and standards, and then also timelines for improvements. I do want to mention this is a unique situation where we're dealing with a project that's partially built out. This is probably as thin of a development agreement that will be before this council moving forward, again, because the infrastructure, roadways, lights, has already been installed. So just a few things in the development agreement that I specifically wanted to point out for council and the public. This development agreement requires that the remaining development be built out within 5 years. Some background, I believe there's 19 houses constructed in the project. There'll be another 27 that are required to be constructed within the 5 years of execution of the development agreement. Secondarily, it restricts the development team from moving forward on Phase 2 and 3 until 80% of Phase 1 is completed. And again, that Phase 2 development agreement is going to be much more significant because we're going to have new roadways, underground infrastructure, et cetera. Also, due to Planning Commission recommendation, there's a requirement for a 2,000 square foot green space recreational area to be installed as part of Phase 1, which will be secured by a $15,000 cash bond payable to the city to make sure that that is constructed. And then finally, I just wanted to point out that Sheltered Brook Drive will continue to remain private and will not be accepted by the city as part of the next phase. So again, I just want to acknowledge everyone's work on getting to this point. Mr. Schrader's got a lot of man hours in, as does Mr. Murray and his team. So again, happy to answer any questions, but we're happy to see the project get to this point and get those last remaining units constructed in Phase 1.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Lasco? Critical.
That 80%, does that include the homes that are already standing now or just the new?
80% of the new builds,
okay.
Yes.
Mr. Klaus.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Lasco, you had mentioned 4D that talks about the Sheltered Brook Drive shall remain private. But then in number 6, and maybe I'm just reading this wrong, but it talks about conditions if the road, condition or precedents, except if the road is accepted by the city to public use, said streets, roads contained in the subdivision, overall future phases, and then it goes on to talk about surety and everything. I just was curious why 6 would be there if the road is not going to be dedicated, or is that just give us the option if it's decided at a future date to turn the road over? That's the conditions.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schrader.
Yes, it contemplates in the event that it should happen in the future that we have some protections built in. And also, this is a unique situation because a lot of the public infrastructure is in already. And in as much as Mr. Murray and his team absolutely want to see this completed, the city wants to see it completed, the residents want to see it completed, I think from the city's perspective, once the infrastructure and the undergrounds are in and everything's done and acceptable, it starts to morph over into a private investment and private dollars at risk, you know? And so I think there's a limited position that the city can take in terms of making any demands of Mr. Murray and his team. They have money in it and investment dollars. I think, as Matt indicated, in phase 2 and phase 3, it's going to be much more like a standard development agreement where we're going to see undergrounds, roads, water, sewer, utilities, and things that we're going to want to see completed, bond work, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you. And I also just want to say, looking forward to this proceeding, and happy that Mr. Murray and his team and everybody's putting a lot into this, and hopefully you get going quickly and get done quicker than 5 years. That'd be ideal. But thank you.
Tarantino?
I think everybody knows the city's limited to building lots, acreage in the city. We're really in desperate need of more development like this. I know this project was stalled for quite a while, so I'm glad to see come to fruition and finally back on right track. Appreciate all the hard work by your team and by our team to get this done, and I think this will be good for community and tax base, et cetera. So thank you.
Very good. I guess my comment, and I'm having computer issues here, so I can't pull this up. And it may be in there. So 80% at 5 years is what the agreement was?
No, 100%.
To you, Mr. Mayor, the build out of phase 1 has to occur within 5 years. To commence work on phase 2, phase 1 has to be 80%. So there's sort of different elements of the agreement.
And then Corinthian Builders, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. You've got them in contract to at least stay 5 years.
I think they want to stay a lot longer.
Okay. I want to see this thing go. So, Mr. Tarantino mentioned, there were some setbacks, and hopefully we'll work through everything. I think it's great that some of the homeowners showed up and are behind it. So again, we have limited housing in Huron right now. So I think it's a great thing. I think the builders are great. They have a great background. So right now you have my blessing. So if there's any more comments or questions?
Can I say a couple of things?
You've already spoke. No, you could go ahead and say something.
I won't cover it all because obviously.
A couple more things I wanted just to share. So for those who don't know me, and I think all of you know me, I'm a bit notorious. I'm James W. Murray of the Two Rivers LLC Development. And my new company I want to share with you, I'm very proud to say, is called Tiburon Company LLC. And if you'll notice, that's the Huron Lighthouse in the logo. And I picked blue colors because I love the lake. And honestly, everything around here seems to be scarlet and gray. And I'm a Notre Dame guy.
Okay, you can sit.
that just turned the crowd. But in all sincerity, and I should say, James W. Murray, my home address is 3608 Turfside Circle in Huron Township, and my office is right down the street at 358 North Main Street, Suite 2000, in my Uncle Tom Murray's office. Just wanted to share a couple things. Most of you already heard my soapbox last meeting, so I'll keep it short. I know we had a few people that were not here. But as the city has said, we have 19 homes completed. We're going to complete another 27 single-family homes, and our pledge is to have that done in 5 years. So to address some of the things, we think that is achievable. And I'm going to allow Ms. Carrie Hensel, who is our realtor, just to give you a quick snapshot of the demand. As Mr. Artino said, there's huge demand in Huron. And I want to address something that I think is very important. Affordable housing is really important to me. These are going to be relatively expensive luxury homes, for the most part, on the river. On the inland in phases 2 and 3 that are off the river, those will be a little more achievable. However, I want to share, and I shared this with the council last meeting, I'm committed to giving a substantial donation to groups like Habitat for Humanity and other groups out of the proceeds of this, because I want to support affordable housing in Erie County. And I know this doesn't necessarily meet the same demographic. I do want to share something that I talked to the city manager about. There's a lot of people in Huron who live in some of the traditional neighborhoods who want to build and move into Two Rivers. That'll open up those houses for future families and homeowners that maybe need a little bit more accessible price point. I want to thank a lot of people. I certainly want to thank the city. Todd has been great. He's held my feet to the fire. If I ever need an attorney to represent me, I'm going to go to him if it's not a conflict of interest. Eric's been great. Matt's been great. The whole team has been really wonderful work with Christine. I want to share that people have been very thorough, very thoughtful, but also very encouraging. So I think now with the developer agreement in place, we've talked about the long-term financing, I think we are rock solid. I wanted to thank Mark, Charlene, and Bruce for coming tonight. These are just a handful of our homeowners. Really, all 19 homeowners want to see this done. They want more neighbors. They want someone else to help pick up the snow plowing in the winter. There's a lot of things that's being amortized over 19 homeowners when it should be amortized over 46 homeowners. As the city has said, this is a private street. My dad was very proud he didn't take a single penny of government funding to do phase 1. I will tell you I'm not quite as proud. For phase 2 and 3, I would hope to come back to you, and I hope we can look at tax increment financing, TIFs, CDBG, whatever funding is potentially available, particularly if we look at something like an affordable housing component, which I'm certainly open to as we think about the greater strategy. You're going to get a lot more taxes in the coffer. I know we're trying to fund our schools. I know the schools are trying to expand, build some new buildings. I think this development will add to that. I wanted to speak just really quickly about Corinthian Fine Homes. I know you guys heard this the last meeting, so I won't say a lot. This is a very prestigious, very complex builder that has built homes as much as $8 million at Muirfield Village, which is where they do the Memorial Golf Tournament. So these guys are real players. Before, we had some good builders, but quite frankly, we had the high school JV. Now we've got Ohio State, okay? And I just wanted to share that they couldn't be here tonight, but Scott, Joe, and Kevin are very invested. Kevin particularly is from Norwalk, and a lot of them see themselves retiring here. And I told them, I'll sell them a lot if they want to build here. In fact, if any of you are interested, you better get it before they go. With that, I just want to say, I think the development agreement is very solid, and of course we'll have to enter in a second one of phase 2 and 3, and potentially phase 4, which will be along the Huron River, and I'm planning to build some pretty amazing single-family homes and potentially townhomes on that site, but that'll be after a while. I got to kind of replenish the coffers really quick. So with that, I think I've said thank you to everybody. I'd like to reintroduce Dean Frederick. If you have any questions about the PUD or the map, he's the guy that's way over my pay grade. But I'd like to turn it over briefly to Carrie Hensel of Simply Better Realty right in Huron, right next to Pied Piper, which I believe is the most important spot other than the donut shop in all of downtown Huron. And I'll turn it over to Carrie to give you just a quick snapshot of what she's seeing from market demand and how quickly we can sell through these units.
Very good. Ms. Hensel.
Hi there. A little shorter than Jim. I think I know most of you, but those of you that don't know me, I'm Carrie Hensel. My husband Greg and I graduated from Huron High School a while ago. We lived in the Columbus area for a lot of years and just moved back to Huron about 6 years ago. My address, I don't know if I have to give that, 1023 Eagle Ridge Drive, Huron. We bought Lighthouse Real Estate, converted it over to Simply Better Realty. I am the broker of Simply Better Realty. We also have Simply Better Property Management, where we manage 20 Airbnbs between Huron and Sandusky. We personally own Captain Montague's, which we're very proud to be stewards of that property. So we're very much invested in Huron, very excited about Two Rivers from a realtor standpoint. I can tell you that there's demand at every price point in our area, but I do see a lot of demand for people looking for properties by the lake, newer construction, and even in that $500 to $1 million price point, We have a very robust data capture system, and for about 2 years we have been trying to directly target buyers in that within those parameters, and we have quite a list. I myself personally do a lot of business in Columbus. I have worked directly with Scott Shively of Corinthian Fine Homes. We have opened multiple new neighborhoods developments in the Dublin-Powell area. I'm intimately involved and have knowledge of how to market and the process and everything that goes along with starting a new development. So I'm really excited about Two Rivers and especially about the quality and the craftsmanship that Corinthian Fine Homes is going to bring to the area. I think it's really in need right now. My mother-in-law lives in the neighborhood. She's very excited to have the lot next to her, have a home instead of an empty field. So I'm couldn't be prouder of being part of this process. Our brokerage, as you know, is right in the middle of a town. We plan to have a meeting and design center for just to have coverage and visibility for Two Rivers. So thank you for having me.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Just as a member of the Huron Heights neighborhood, I'm looking forward to it. Having it all built out would be nice.
Good. Anyone else? All right. Final adoption.
Klaus.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Tapp.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you all. On behalf of my parents, who put this all together, and quite frankly, my mom and dad, all that infrastructure and over $2 million out of their own pockets. I just want to say thank you on behalf of James T. and Shirley A. Murray. And you'll be hearing some more things about our philanthropy in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Resolution number 54-2023.
Mayor,
Mr. Graves.
I'd like to waive the three reading rule and place resolution number 54-2023 on its first reading.
Questions on the three reading? Roll call, please.
Greaves.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Klaus.
Yes.
Tapp.
Yes. Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 54-2023, a resolution affirming the city manager's execution of an electric service agreement with Dynegy Energy Services East LLC to provide competitive retail electric service to certain city utility accounts served by Ohio Edison Company.
Very good. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the changes to Ohio Edison and the elevated price point that they're going to come in at this summer, we took all of our electric bills, we aggregated them, and we sent them out to auction. We received about 12 bidders at the electric auction, and Dynegy were the lowest across 1, 2, and 3 years. We decided to go for the 2-year option from Dynegy. It kept our rates low for a longer period, but not too long a period. The rate came in at 0.563, which is 50% what we'd be paying at Ohio Edison right now. And this will be billed straight through a single biller on our existing Ohio Edison electric invoices. And we're asking for forgiveness because we had to sign the same day. Yeah, snuck that in at the end.
Questions for Mr. Hamilton? Okay, slide. Final adoption.
Greaves.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Klaus.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Tapp.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. All right, next, a motion to refer the rezoning application of Sawmill Creek LLC on parcels annexed into the city.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Biddlecombe.
I move to refer the rezoning application of Sawmill Creek LLC on parcels annexed into the city of Huron from the current R1 single-family residential to B3 general business to the Planning Commission.
Very good, Mr. Schrader.
I have nothing other than roll call.
This is just going to the Planning Commission. Mr. Lasko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As mentioned, this is just a motion to move the application to the Planning Commission, which is required per our ordinances. As mentioned, any property annexed into the city temporarily will always default to single-family residential. Obviously, it's not a single-family residential site, so we are in receipt of an application seeking to rezone to B3 general business. But again, the first step is to send that to the Planning Commission for consideration.
And that was from Cedar Fair.
Cedar Fair, in essence.
Questions for Mr. Lasko? Adoption?
Biddlecombe?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Artino?
Yes.
Hap?
Yes.
Klaus?
Yes.
Greaves?
Yes.
Hagee?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we come to the highlight, the city manager's discussion.
I timed it in the mirror this morning. It's my shortest one yet, so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, those in the audience, those watching at home. Very brief update on the work at Oster's. Again, we continue to work diligently with our nonprofit partners. As we sit here today, 9 households have been physically relocated from the site into new residencies, which they're all very happy with and very proud of their new residents. So we're making significantly good progress, but obviously there's a lot of work as we move forward over the next couple weeks and several months. Did just want to mention generally, as we talked about one development this evening, obviously we know that the demand for housing of all kinds, affordable to high-end, remains strong in Huron and the broader region. We will be meeting with representatives from Triban Investment this week. A little bit of background, they're a company that specializes in land acquisition for countless national and regional home builders, everything for infill housing to single-family greenfield projects. So we'll continue to keep council apprised of those outcomes as we look to try to address the housing needs of this community, again, across all spectrums. Moving to infrastructure and streets, as a follow-up to last meeting, and reminder to the public, we did postpone the 2023 resurfacing project for Chaska and Old Homestead 1 and 2 until 2024. In addition to that, after extensive due diligence, we are recommending that to be a concrete patch versus a comprehensive asphalt overlay. We did have a presentation at last council meeting. So at this point, we've now met with representatives from OHM and we'll be continuing the design process to have that project bid out this fall so that we can start construction and complete construction, hopefully in the first half of 2024. And we did send communications out to all homeowners association representatives today or yesterday. I know many of them were at last meeting, but just for good measure, we've now communicated that to all the HOAs as well. And again, if there's any questions that come up, I always direct those to Mr. Hamilton, extension 1104, if anyone has questions.
1104.
Another new project I just wanted to mention very early on, but something that the city's going to explore. We talked about it today in one of our capital planning projects or meetings, but we continuously get requests to consider sidewalk installations on Berlin Road, south of Shawnee School. We did apply unsuccessfully for Safe Routes to School funding in 2022. Obviously, with the school ceasing to exist, that source of funding is not going to be an option moving forward, but we are going to continue to look at funding opportunities for the placement of this project in a future capital planning year. And obviously, there's going to be the added complexity of engaging the railroad to add a pedestrian crossing at that tracks. But I think minimally, we want to see that sidewalk extended to create an entrance to the Berlin Road Park just south of the existing railroad track. So that's something we're going to work into future capital planning and projects. A few comments for Parks and Recreation. Again, a big thank you to the Riverfest committee and organizers and volunteers. Certainly another successful and enjoyable festival. Again, Mr. Biddlecombe, I'm sure you'll have some comments as well, but great job as always. I know you've got a lot of years into it and
Thank you.
Successfully pulled off another great festival with a lot of help. And thank you to our Parks and Recreation staff and other departments, safety forces as well, to ensuring another safe and memorable weekend. A quick update on the tennis courts. Work continues at the site. The courts have been milled down to determine the extent of base repairs. I believe the contractor is going to be back this week to begin those base repairs and construction of the under drains on the bases of those tennis courts. I do want to mention and thank, we were notified by Huron Township that at their July 6th meeting, they decided to increase their contribution to the project from $50,000 to $100,000. So an increase of $50,000 to that project. We continue to be so grateful to our partners at the township for their collaborative efforts, not just on this project, but many others. A quick update on the personnel side of things. We do have 2 recent vacancies within the police department. We do anticipate making multiple hires over the next couple weeks and have those officers, I believe, potentially at some upcoming swearing in ceremonies at next meeting and the first meeting in August to get us up to full staff. And finally, just meetings to close out the rest of the month. We do have Planning Commission on Wednesday, July 19th at 5 o'clock in the council chambers, and a second city council meeting for the month, Tuesday, July 25th at 6:30 in the council chambers. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was quick.
No more.
Any questions for Mr. Lasko? Comments? Nothing. Guess it was long enough. All right, next is the mayor's discussion. Again, I don't have a whole lot. I want to thank Mr. Biddlecom and the Riverfest Committee. Everything went great. I think everything was fairly quiet, right, Chief? Good, good. No huge things. I want to say welcome back, Mr. Hay, because hope you.
There's only one meeting.
I know, but I want you to heal up. I mean, you're a hero here. You showed up in your wheelchair, so I hope you heal quickly.
Thank you.
So, I also want to thank the folks that showed up tonight. I got down 1013 Beachside Line, but I didn't get your name. And Mr. Hamilton will speak to you after the meeting. You got it. I got it. Okay.
1104.
I want to. Yeah. Thanks for coming in. Other than that, I again, the staff, I think you guys know, and those that are watching, how busy the city is with projects that are going on. Mr. Lasko, Mr. Schrader, Mr. Crotale, Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Corey, their finance director. Everything, he's got to keep an eye on everything. So I want to thank you guys. Yeah, he keeps an eye on the city manager. I want to thank you guys for everything you've been doing and continue to do. So. I know there's a lot of questions been coming up to some of the council members on certain things, and they call me, and I don't know. I send them to the right person, I hope, and they get the questions answered. So, and I want to thank council also, following through and helping out and making everything run as smoothly as possible. With that said, that's all I got. For the good of the order, Mr. Hagee.
No, sir, I have nothing.
Mr. Greaves.
Thanks, everyone, for the Riverfest. Everyone put in the hard work. It was a great outing there. And thanks to the township for everything they do for HERD and the tennis courts in the city. It's much appreciated.
Mr. Dyke.
Thank you for the Riverfest. Had a great time down there. I think they should outlaw noisemakers as prizes. But I did have an opportunity to go to the opening ceremonies. I was one of 25 people there, Mr. Mayor and also Matt Lasko. But I was sitting there, and you were just mentioning all the different things that are happening. And it made me step back and realize, like, wow, yes, we are very busy. And it's all positive things that are making this community better. So thank you again to everybody for their hard work and their efforts. And it's a great place to live and raise a family. So thank you. That's all I have.
Good, Mr. Dyke. Mr. Klaus.
Just again, also reiterate William and his crew for their great job with the Riverfest. Also, Parks and Rec, I know, has a lot of involvement and help with William and his team on that as well. So we always appreciate their hard work. Staff, Matt, everybody with their ongoing. Great to see Russ here. It's been a while. We haven't seen you in a while. We would like to get updates on the road projects and like to see that continue to move forward. Phase 2 6 has been got stalled out quite a bit by COVID, and so I'm looking forward to kind of really starting to push that along now. See that I think is looking to be a really interesting project and really clean up that corridor and that entrance to the city if we can make this all go the way we're thinking. The abandonment and giving us some flexibility. Is all I have.
Mr. Artino.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think the Riverfest is an example, just one more example of all the great activities and events that are provided for this community and our visitors. And it's because of a lot of hard work by staff, by volunteers, and I just think, it's just it's great to have all these things going on here in our city. Besides all the economic development we have been doing, people know I've been on council for a while. I think that what's happened here in the last few years is just amazing. We haven't had some of the tools in our toolbox that we had in the past. So to be able to overcome that and continue to develop and move forward the way this city has, I want to just say it's just great, and I think that a lot of credit goes to the staff, city manager, and to a fine council that's here working hard to provide the best we can for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Artino. I mean, you were here when they paved the roads the first time, right?
First time, yes, in 1812.
Mr. Biddlecombe.
All right. I'd like to thank staff for all their hard work. I'd also like to thank the township for increasing their contribution to the tennis courts. I'd like to congratulate firefighter Brian Zimmerman on passing his National Registry EMT basic exam and obtaining that certification. The Scott Cemetery Board is having their next meeting on July 24th at the Huron Township building. The Huron football program is having their annual Burger or Brat dinner fundraiser immediately following the Tiger Pride run on July 26th. Pre-orders are due by July 14th. You can call 419-202-1016 for more information and to place an order. The next school board meeting will be on July 17th at 6 p.m. And if you're interested in owning a school, the Shawnee auction bidding will close tomorrow, July 12th at 7 p.m. Huron Parks and Rec events coming up. We have baseball camp, July 17th through the 20th. Soccer camp is July 10th through the 13th. Some boat basin events coming up. The Movies by the River. We have July 12th, Minions, The Rise of Gru. July 19th, Arthur Christmas. Bopping on the Basin on July 15th, we have Sandtown. And July 22nd is Christmas in July with Rumors. And then Arts at the Amphitheater, July 16th, we have the Vermilion Community Concert Band. I would like to thank everyone who came out for Riverfest over the weekend, and I hope everyone had an enjoyable time. I'd like to thank everyone who volunteers their time with the Riverfest committee. Without the volunteers, there would be no Riverfest, and I truly appreciate all the hours that go into making the festival happen. I'd like to thank all of our city departments again for participating in our Touch a Truck event this year. I'd like to thank Mr. Tapp and Mr. Lasko for participating in our opening ceremonies. And definitely big thank you to Mr. Steinwart and his staff for their excellent support throughout the weekend as well as throughout the year. And thank you to the police and fire departments for their constant support over the weekend as well. I'd like to thank Kaylin McCormick. She recently just graduated. She was our past Riverfest queen. She did an awesome job with the national anthem. And I'd like to thank and congratulate our new Riverfest queen, Tess Humphrey, as well as first runner-up Brooke Randall and second runner-up Riley Martin. I'll be looking forward to them representing the festival as well as the Huron community over the next year. So in summation, please come out and support our local events, programs, and student athletes, and go Tigers.
Very good, Mr. Biddlecombe. There is no executive sessions tonight, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Biddlecombe,
I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
roll call, please.
Biddlecombe.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Cap.
Yes.
Klaus.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I'll go talk.